Introducing Luminar's founder and CEO, Austin Russell.
CES is back, and we're here with a lot more from Luminar ahead. But have some certainly exciting stuff today that I really look forward to being able to show. So we can jump straight into it. First and foremost, we have the North American debut of the SAIC Rising Auto R7 electric vehicle. This is equipped with Luminar integrated into the roofline cleanly, and for the first time is an opportunity where we see this kind of level of technology transitioning out of R&D, that it's been, stuck in the autonomous vehicle space for the better part of a decade, and actually making its way into production vehicles. So this is already available. It started production in October and is now on roads in consumers' hands in China. So that's just the start of what we have, but a lot more that's ahead. So you guys are probably familiar. This is what these kinds of companies operating in the autonomous vehicle space have looked like. Very, very different kind of scenario, because historically, virtually everyone in the space has been focused on more urban robotaxi type vehicles, operation situations, et cetera, with these huge roof racks, supercomputers in the trunk, et cetera, focused on replacing the driver rather than enhancing the driver. And this is something that we have, for the better part of a decade now, made a big bet on towards production consumer vehicles and making a bet for enhancing the driver instead, not eliminating it altogether. And while there's a lot of great opportunities up ahead and certainly looking forward to the future, we're transforming AVs from looking like this to looking like this. And we're very proud to be able to say that in addition to SAIC, we are also hosting the North American debut of the new flagship Volvo EX90. That was something that is launching with Luminar this year, and shortly thereafter, we have the Polestar 3, that's a new all-electric vehicle that will also be launching with Luminar. Notice how, again, gone are these huge complex systems. You can see it seamlessly integrated into the roofline, and would encourage you guys to stop by our booth. But for those that can't, we'll zoom in for a second into our booth now, and you can actually see the vehicle live there with the LiDAR integrated in the roofline, Volvo for life written just below it. It's a pretty amazing vehicle too. I mean, frankly, even independent of Luminar on it, between the R7 here and the EX90, you actually got some pretty fantastic cars that I'm sure will sell incredibly well. But obviously, this is a key flagship feature of these vehicles. So this is how these companies are developing and evolving the safest vehicles out on the roads. All right, so what's next for Luminar? We can talk about that in a bit, but I want to recap 2022. This is something that it was an intense year. Seriously, it's a lot of stuff going on. But at the beginning of the year, we set out 4 key targets for us to be able to achieve for what I think many thought at the time were relatively ambitious goals. And those 4, or the first one being start of production to be able to be achieved. And series production readiness, which we did successfully do before the end of the year in October, and actually did launch on the SAIC vehicle, obviously, as mentioned. So that was check to the first one. The next one was a beta version of Sentinel. Sentinel is our holistic software solution for next generation safety and autonomy, and we have this on the road here at CES. So this is something that you can actually be able to experience live. And there's 4 different dimensions of this that we'd like to be able to show. And before we get into the last 2 milestones, we want to just do a quick snapshot of this. You can actually see just earlier today, our cars being able to come to a safe stop even for very difficult scenarios like a pedestrian child dummy coming across the road. You can take a ride in the Luminar equipped car, and you can also actually pick a comparison vehicle as well to be able to take a drive in to show off the current capabilities of today. The reality is that vehicles today don't have the ability to come to a safe stop in most situations, even during perfectly lit conditions, much less at night as well, at any reasonable speed. So you can be able to see that live. Next up, and this is something that we're actually showing off for the first time, is being able to come to a safe stop by detecting an object far out in the distance, not just as large as a child, but even as small as a tire out on the road. Now this is historically traditionally very, very difficult to see, but even at 40 miles an hour in this case that we're able to get up to, it's able to come to a full and safe stop in time. In addition to that, between the proactive safety demonstrations that we have a full LiDAR perception stack running. We have highway assist capabilities that are out on the roads here. And we have one more thing that we'll talk about in just a bit. So, one very exciting piece of news is that we have a multitude of new Luminar-powered production consumer vehicle models that will be coming up that we have contracted. And this is something that really adds to our major commercial program wins goal. We were originally targeting 40% growth this past year over all the cumulative major commercial wins that we've had historically for programs. We raised it partway through the year, seeing a lot of huge momentum from 40% to 60%, and I'm proud to be able to say that we have exceeded that 60% goal. So incredibly impressive all around, an amazing work to the full Luminar team, and I know a couple of the folks that work on in the audience here today. So it's been fantastic. But it really just speaks to the core technology and capabilities of what we've been able to build that made this all possible. And this is something that when you take a look at something like this, these are not, short-term deals. This is not something that's on an annual basis. We're talking when you commit to something like this for a series production arrangement, decade-long plus commitments onto us. So it's a big thing to be able to see, companies continue to double down on us, put us on more production vehicle models, and really betting the future of their companies and roadmap on Luminar. We'll have more to be able to talk about this. That's something that we'll say more at Luminar Day, but we'll leave that for the end. From a financial standpoint, we have also exceeded our goal of 60% year-over-year growth. It's really, actually, you should say, it's 60% this growth this past year compared to, again, all the wins that we've had cumulatively. So it's really just adding to that flywheel, and like I said, something that we're really excited to be able to deliver against. But we'll talk more about what all that means. But from a financial standpoint, it's incredibly impressive what we've been able to really pull off there. So something completely different, shifting gears, we want to talk about what's new for 2023 and beyond. Maps. So, a brief history of the past millennia of maps. Back in the 1500s, you had Gerard Mercator that had originally became famous for projecting a 3D map onto a 2D plane, and was kind of the first major cartographer to be able to help make that happen. Jump over to the 2000s, you have Google Maps, Apple Maps, that whole revolution that really started, and people getting more and more into maps and seeing how much of a difference it can make for daily consumers' lives. And I think these are products that we all use regularly and contribute a huge portion of the value to what these companies provide. And they've done so very successfully. But the thing is that there's another step function to be had, and that's that whole transformation from 2D to 3D and from standard definition to high definition for maps. And we have a vision for this, is to be able to create the first accurate, comprehensive, up-to-date map of the world in 3D. Now, it sounds pretty ambitious and aggressive and maybe not particularly doable, but we'll talk a little bit more about what we've done to make this happen and how we're going to make it happen. So, Civil Maps. This is a company you guys may or may not have heard of. If you're probably if you're in the industry, you have historically. We acquired Civil Maps in the second quarter of this past year in 2022. Very quietly, but we wanted to be able to have an opportunity to show, not just tell. And you can see some different examples, I think between Tokyo, San Francisco, Berlin, of the kinds of maps that we're able to create. And Civil Maps had leveraged LiDAR data to be able to collectively put together a very specific kind of compressed map that's able to leverage crowdsourced capabilities from multiple vehicles to put together into a singular map solution. And this is something that we believe will be hugely accretive to the foundation of what we've built on the LiDAR. And that's what we'll be able to see today. So from a mapping market, I think it's around on the order of 1.4 billion by many estimates for HD mapping in 2021, going to 16.9 billion by 2030. And that's something that is huge exponential growth. It's a relatively small fraction of the overall mapping market today. That's probably in the tens of billions. But I think you're going to see it multiply in terms of the percentage of the overall mapping market, probably fivefold. And this is supported by many estimates over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. So not a huge surprise, but this is how we get there in terms of the step function. So you take a look at, and this is well-known public data here of these types of companies that are leaders in the mapping industry today. Between Google, Apple, here TomTom, et cetera. The way that these kinds of high definition or 3D maps are traditionally collected is by sending out these data collection vehicles that are driven by people manually across the world on a continued basis, and just try to continue to get up-to-date maps. But the challenge is that you're generally very limited on how many cars you can deploy because it's very expensive, and you have to have these custom-rigged cars that are equipped with these LiDAR systems and whatnot, among cameras and other things on the vehicles to be able to have that understanding of the environment. But the problem is that you don't need hundreds of cars or even thousands of cars. You need millions of cars if you want to be able to create a true, comprehensive understanding of the world around us. And maybe you saw from the previous slides, what we're doing in terms of transforming these huge roof racks into a cleanly integrated production vehicle. And that is exactly what we're doing. So we'd expect by the second half of this decade, we will have over 1 million Luminar-equipped vehicles out on the road, from our estimates from ourselves and our automakers. And this is something that we're the first time we're going to get a truly comprehensive view of everything going on and a up-to-date map from around the world with vehicles contributing towards this holistic map. That's where we come into play. That's the vision. And leveraging our LiDAR technology is foundational to unlock this capability to make this happen. And that's how you go from 1,000 vehicles to 1 million vehicles. I mean, we're literally talking 1,000x in terms of the amount, the level, and the timeliness of that data. So that's a lot of talk. Obviously, we've been able to prove ourselves from a LiDAR standpoint, but this is a new foray and era on the mapping front. So we'd like to be able to show a little bit around it. So today, out here in Las Vegas, we actually have vehicles that are roaming around, being able to collect data to showcase how we can put together a comprehensive map of the world around us from different types of vehicles. And this goes to show an example. You have actually in the two sections on the right, we have a couple of vehicles that are out there with the Luminar Iris LiDAR that are collecting the data, actually aggregating it into a map, and then putting that together as part of this comprehensive map that you can see out on the left. And that's where, in the streets of Vegas, it's all compiled together into something that is a very high fidelity, but at the same time, a very low aggregate volume of data. So if you could, on the left, if you could zoom out holistically and just take a look, we've been mapping this since, just as an example here, since 9 a.m. today. So if you zoom out on the left as much as possible, we'll actually see, I haven't even seen the latest of what it will do, so let's see how far it got. Just keep zooming out. There you go. Keep zooming out. Perfect. So, you can see some different examples there too over the past few hours of how this has all come together. And this is something that, again, is representative of what is possible when you have this out in series production and at a global scale. So this is something that we're building this scalable model so that it can take the data inputs from each new vehicle and continue to add to that holistic map. So that's the preview of what we have today. and what's coming ahead. And we're incredibly excited to have the opportunity to continue to reinforce Luminar as a brand that's expanding beyond just the foundational breakthrough LiDAR technology that we have, but part of a holistic solution in partnership with automakers to be able to make next generation safety and autonomy possible and standardized for everyone. And not just high-end, high-performance vehicles, standardized across the board for all kinds of vehicle platforms. So thank you for that, and incredible work from our software team and the Civil Maps team to make that possible. So next up, shifting gears, I want to talk about brand. We have some updates here, and we're going to start off with a little bit around the theory and thesis of this. So there's a few different major trends that have happened and paradigm shifts within the industry that have been coming together over the past, handful of years, so to say. A couple of them, we have simplified above. One is a transition from horsepower, to brain power, transition from luxury to technology. And that is the new focus of consumers in the automotive industry, is that it's not just about what type of, engines or shifters or crystal knobs that you have, in your car anymore, or what type of specific leather is there. It's about what kind of technical capabilities that it has. And we're seeing this revolution come forward and becoming very, very important to this. So, really, Luminar has become part of this new class of companies that's able to establish itself almost as a status symbol in some ways on these vehicles, to be able to get that clear understanding of the environment and fundamentally evolve the holistic driving experience. We're far from the traditional automotive supplier that you would see out in the industry. And I think this is really best represented from the kinds of things that you can see with proactive safety, like things that we have to show out today and what automakers are implementing right now, all the way to these kinds of highway assist, highway autonomy capabilities that, again, are enabled and in terms of capabilities by the same hardware that can improve the safety on a vehicle. It's the same LiDAR, same hardware that can improve the highway assist and autonomy capabilities and general ADAS capabilities out for these vehicles. Of course, this also applies to trucks as well. And you can see actually a Luminar-equipped truck with our blade design out on the parking lot next to the proactive safety demonstration here at CES. So, you guys may have heard about our 100-year vision and what's ahead there. The holistic vision of Luminar and how that all ties together is to have the opportunity to save as many as 100 million lives and 100 trillion hours out on the road over the next 100 years. This is a vision that we unveiled actually at last CES, and something that we're going to continue to double down on for, the next 100 years. So, but hey, I think it's something that we're all incredibly proud of and what gets us up every day to just keep moving on. But from a brand standpoint, this is where this all ties together and comes into play. We want to become the first automotive technology company to truly break through to the consumer. When you take a look at the automotive supply chain historically, you generally see, tier 1 suppliers, tier 2 suppliers that 99% of the time end up as white-labeled technologies out on the vehicle and white-labeled by the actual OEM and the brand itself. But that's largely because, when you have these different kinds of widgets or components on a vehicle, it's not particularly meaningful for the consumer to know or be aware, or the consumer to even care for that matter. What's different here is that for the first time, you're seeing a truly transformational difference in the driving experience and what's actually possible. And with that, that's where we start to see the importance of brand for a company like us become very relevant. This is something that, like I said, it's very rare, but there are a couple of examples that you can take into account that have been able to leverage this. And, you can have a tale of two very similar sounding companies, in some ways, between Bose and Brose, or Brose, as an example here. Many of you are probably in the industry familiar, with Brose as well. But to the average consumer, the familiarity with a company like Bose is probably orders of magnitude greater. And the reason for that is because it's able to provide something that is a new kind of, you could say, experience and difference in experience as it relates to that brand in the vehicle. And Bose is one of the few examples of someone that's able to truly break through to that to the consumer. But I think what's cool is that when you take a look at these kinds of automotive companies that we've been working with, and they've been incredible partners to us as well, just for the first few ones, between SAIC, Volvo, Polestar, et cetera, there is an increasing need and desire to be able to show off, our capabilities and technology. And frankly, I don't even think you could hide it if you wanted to. It's pretty prominent on the roofline there. So really, people are leaning into this to be able to showcase what's next. And that's something that we're already starting to get that consumer awareness that I think is dramatically greater than the vast majority, or maybe even any other traditional type of tier one supplier company into the industry. And that's really what's differentiating, and I think what will continue to drive people towards wanting Luminar adoption, not just the automaker wanting to adopt Luminar into their vehicles, but actually drive from the end consumer to want Luminar into their vehicles. So that's where we're at today. We did mention some of the companies here. There's also a lot of other great companies, between Mercedes, Nissan, Daimler Truck, other great partners that we have, like NVIDIA, Mobileye, on the technology side, that have been great for helping see us through for various programs or production programs. But the reason why now, when we're talking from a brand standpoint, and what we'll show next is the sort of next iteration of this, is because of the fact that we're planning to be featured on substantially more new production consumer vehicles, and this is the brand that will be really getting out there in terms of recognition. And so for the first time after a decade, we're seeing this evolve. And we'll give a little bit more insight into it. It's not super radically different, but it's a big enough difference that I think is pretty exciting for all of us. So you can see our historical logo here. Take the 3 bars, zoom it out, and realize it was there in 3D the entire time. So there's the new Luminar brand. All right. Thank you, guys. There's been a lot of thought and time and effort that went into this, but I think it's really representative of how we've become this multi-layered company. We've been building off of the LiDAR, we've been building off the software, we've been building off of these vehicle platforms from our incredible automaker partners along the way, and a lot more to be done. And creating that 3D safe space around the vehicle, while still looking ahead with sort of the chevrons that are that you can see on the logo, it's something that's incredibly powerful, and I think will, for at least some years ahead, if not decades ahead, be representative of where we're at with Luminar and what's ahead with Luminar for the duration of these vehicle programs and beyond. We have a lot more to talk about in terms of a deeper dive into what all this means in terms of our new program wins for additional vehicle models, for the success the company's had, for all of these different acquisitions that we've been doing, for some of the new deals that we have, and for our financials and economics. And as a public company, we'll be reporting earnings on February 28th. So we're hosting this Luminar Day out in Orlando, Florida, at our headquarters there on February 28th, to be able to showcase with various deep dives into some of the technology that we've had for the first time, and showing off some new features and new capabilities, partnerships, et cetera, in terms of getting a little bit of a deeper look behind the hood or under the hood of what's really there. And there's so much to this story for Luminar of what we have and what we have ahead that is often very nuanced, but excited to be able to start peeling back the onion a bit. And for the first time, we'll be actually showing off the future of our holistic technology roadmap for the next decade. So excited to be able to share that, and you're welcome to attend in person. You can reach out for it is invite only, but you can reach out if you have interest in that. And at the same time, we will be live streaming it as well. So again, a huge thank you to everyone for attending here at CES. Please get a chance to stop by our booth, stop by the proactive safety area. It's a really exciting time for all of us, and I think it will be for the next 100 years as well. So appreciate it, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you for joining Luminar's press event at CES 2023. Visit Luminar in West Hall booth number 5342 and watch proactive safety demos outside at the West Hall Plaza.